The forgotten legend. The galaxy was old, older than any single empire could remember. Stars had burned, died, and been born again while civilizations rose and fell. Across the 1,000 worlds of the Council, myths were told like bedtime stories. And the strangest myth of all was about humans. They were called Deathworlders, the ones who came from a planet too harsh, too violent, too dangerous for life to exist. A place where storms destroyed cities, predators hunted even the strongest, and the ground itself shook with fire. Yet somehow, according to legend, humans not only survived there, they thrived, but most of the galaxy did not believe in them anymore. At the Grand Council Hall, the young species laughed when the old scholars spoke of humans. To them, humans were no different than fairy tales about dragons or shadow beasts, stories to scare children, nothing more. Deathworlders? Please, one delegate sneered. If they were real, we would have seen them by now. Another added, legends are for weak minds, not for rulers. The laughter spread across the chamber, echoing in the vast dome, but there were still a few who did not laugh. Among them was Scholar Varric, a thin alien with trembling hands. His eyes had seen records hidden deep in archives, fragments of messages from long ago. Do not be so certain, Varric warned. The humans may have gone, but absence does not mean death. His words were drowned in the noise of ridicule. Outside the council world, life continued as normal. Fleets patrolled their borders. Merchants traded across star lanes, and colonies argued about taxes. No one thought of humans. No one cared, until the signals came. At first, they were faint, like whispers through static. Deep space stations picked up unusual bursts of energy at the galaxy's edge. The signals did not match any known empire's technology. They were strong, old, and strangely precise. When the first decoded fragment reached the council, silence replaced laughter. It said only this: "This is Earth's fleet." The message repeated across every channel. It was calm, clear, and without emotion. To many, it felt like the voice of a ghost. For a long moment, the council chamber was frozen. Every delegate stared at one another, their faces pale with disbelief. "No," one whispered. "It cannot be them. It's impossible." But the evidence grew stronger. Scout probes reported massive objects moving between stars, too large to be freighters, too controlled to be asteroids. They were ships, warships. The colony of Vayara was the first to see them. Its people watched as shadows covered their sky. Hundreds of dark shapes slid out of the void, blotting out the sun. Children screamed, elders fell to their knees, and soldiers froze at their posts. The images traveled fast, huge vessels with human markings carved into their hulls. Fear spread faster than light. Every world repeated the same rumor. The humans have returned. Some begged for help, others prepared to run. The council itself split apart, with half demanding military action and half demanding surrender before it was too late. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, the old ones whispered. They remembered what the stories had said, that humans were not conquerors, not empire builders, but survivors. And survivors do not return unless there is a reason. That night, Scholar Varric stood by the window of his chamber, staring into the stars. He trembled, but not from fear. He trembled because he had always believed this day would come, and now it had. They thought we were only myths, he whispered. But myths do not send warships. Above the council world, the stars flickered with an unnatural glow, and every heart in the galaxy began to wonder the same question. If the legends were true, what else had humanity prepared in the dark? Skies on fire. The colony of Vayara had always been quiet. It was a green world, with 2 small moons and endless fields of crystal blue grass. Children played in the meadows. Traders passed through. Its spaceports and its skies were usually empty except for cargo ships, but on that day the sky burned. It began with a shadow. At first, the colonists thought a storm was coming, but then the shadow grew larger and wider until the sun itself dimmed. Farmers looked up and dropped their tools. Pilots froze inside their cockpits, and the streets of the capital city fell silent. Out of the black horizon came ships. Not one, not two, but dozens, each so massive they seemed to drag the night with them. Their hulls gleamed with cold metal, scarred with strange symbols that no alien could read. The ships did not move like freighters. They moved like predators, silent and purposeful. The Varan defense fleet scrambled. Fighters rose into the sky, their engines screaming. But compared to the giants above them, they were like insects around a mountain. A captain of the local fleet tried to broadcast a warning. "This is the Varan Guard. Identify yourselves or we will." The message cut off, because the warship spoke first. Across every frequency, across every channel came the same calm voice. "This is Earth's fleet." The words rolled like thunder across the colony. Children cried, parents held them close, soldiers froze in disbelief. The legends, the stories, the myths, they were real and they were here. The defense fleet did not fire. They could not. The warships carried weapons far larger than the Varan cities themselves. Even the bravest pilot knew a single shot would mean total destruction. Instead, silence filled the skies. The human ships hovered above the world, not firing, not moving, just watching. Their presence alone was enough to break the courage of the people below. In the council chambers far away, chaos erupted. "Proof!" One delegate shouted, "The humans live!" Others screamed for military response, but no one dared to give the order, because deep inside they all knew. If those ships wanted war, Vaara would already be ash and smoke. Rumors spread faster than official messages. Merchants carried the eye. Story across trade routes, each retelling more terrifying than the last. "They blotted out the sun," one said. "Their ships do not make a sound," another whispered. "They are here for revenge." Others added in hidden corners, "Secret." Transmissions leaked. Images showed alien fighters flying next to the massive ships, looking like toys against titans. And etched into the human hulls were markings, flags, words, and symbols from Earth. One ship bore a name in ancient human letters, burned into the side with fire. It read, HMS Vengeance. On the colony, a small girl tugged on her mother's sleeve and pointed at the sky. "Mom," she whispered, "are those the monsters from the stories?" The mother did not answer. She could not, because the truth was worse than any story. The night came early that day, not because the sun had set, but because the human ships were so vast they blocked the light. The colony lived in shadow, staring up at the giants above them, and the galaxy realized that the age of myths was over. It had only taken one fleet, one arrival, to prove the stories true. But the question remained, if this was only one fleet, how many more were out there, waiting, in the dark? The first contact for days, the warships hung above Vaara. They did not fire, they did not move, they only watched. The colony lived in silence, afraid to breathe too loud. Every eye turned upward, every ear strained to hear the next words from the sky. At last, a group of alien scout ships was sent to approach. Their engines shook as they crawled toward the dark giants. The pilots inside were veterans, but their hands trembled on the controls. Compared to the human warships, they felt like insects approaching gods. When the scouts came within range, the sky itself seemed to shiver. Lights ran across the human hulls like rivers of fire. Then the transmission came. The voice was not alien, not strange, not robotic. It was human, clear, calm, and heavy with authority. "This is Earth's fleet," the voice repeated. "We have returned." The council across the galaxy received the same signal. Every world, every station, every ship heard it at once. The words carried no anger, no plea, only truth. The humans had returned, and they were no myth. On Vaara, the scout pilots tried to reply. "This is the Varan defense. State your intentions." Their voices shook, their courage thin, but the human reply was colder than the void. "Our intentions will be made clear." Then silence again. The colony held its breath. The warships began to move slowly, like mountains drifting across the stars. Every building shook as the massive shadows passed overhead. Then one ship broke formation and lowered itself. It stopped high above the capital city, its presence pressing down like a storm. From its underbelly, a beam of white light spilled downward, and within that light, a figure descended. It was the first human the galaxy had seen in thousands of years. The being was tall, armored in black, metal that reflected the sun like a mirror. Its helmet hid the face, but its very presence made hearts freeze. The human landed in the center of the city, the ground trembling beneath its boots. Crowds gathered at a distance, whispering in fear. Is it real? Is it truly a human? Even the bravest soldiers dared not raise a weapon. The human spoke again, but this time not through machines. His voice carried across the city, strong and unshaken. We told you not to forget us, he said, but you laughed at the warnings. He lifted his hand and the warships above the city shifted, their weapons glowing with silent power. Now you will remember. The ground quaked, lights filled the sky, and the colony realized this was not just first contact, it was judgment. And far away, in the council chambers, the leaders sat frozen, for the human envoy had transmitted his words to them as well. Every empire heard the same voice. Every ruler felt the same cold truth. The humans were not asking for peace. They were declaring their return. The council in chaos. The Grand Council had faced many crises before, wars between empires, famine on border worlds, even plagues that swept through the stars. But never had the chamber felt so fragile, so close to shattering. The delegates screamed over one another, their voices rising like a storm. They are real, one shouted, his tentacles trembling. We must prepare for war, cried another, pounding the table with a claw. No, war is death, shouted a third. We must surrender before they strike. The hall echoed with panic. The young species who once laughed at the old myths now sat pale and silent, their arrogance gone, replaced with raw fear. At the center, Chancellor Arvin tried to keep order. Silence, he roared, but his voice was lost in the chaos. For every delegate shouted a different fate for the galaxy. Some demanded unity, others called for retreat, and a few whispered of betraying their allies to survive. Then the lights dimmed. The vast chamber fell into silence as the screens across the hall flickered. Every delegate turned, their voices caught in their throats. For the screens did not show council symbols. They showed a face. It was a human. The envoy who had stepped onto Veera now stood in the center of the council's chamber, not in person but through projection. His black armor gleamed, his helmet still hiding his face, but his voice carried into every heart, calm and cold. You built your galaxy on lies, the human said. You called us myths, fairy tales, forgotten shadows. He raised a hand, and behind him the image of Earth's warships filled the chamber, their silhouettes stretching across the stars. But we did not vanish. The delegates shifted in terror. One whispered, "How did they breach our systems?" Another hissed, "No empire has that power." The human envoy continued, "We left this galaxy, yes, but not in weakness. We left to grow stronger, to prepare, to ensure that when we returned, no one would ever doubt again." The chamber erupted in whispers. If the myths were true, if humans had been gone for thousands of years, where had they gone? What had they faced? And what had they brought back? The Chancellor tried to speak, his voice breaking. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Do you seek war? Do you seek our worlds?" The envoy tilted his head. For a long moment, silence filled the chamber. Then the human said only this, "We will give you a choice." The council erupted again, half in rage, half in despair. But before they could ask what the choice meant, the screens flickered out. The envoy was gone. The hall was left in cold silence, every leader staring at the empty space where the myth had stood. Outside, in the dark of space, Earth's fleet drifted like shadows of judgment, waiting, watching, choosing its time, and the galaxy realized something terrifying. The humans were not just returning to exist, they were returning to rule. The demonstration. The council had demanded proof. Some argued the humans were bluffing, that their ships were old relics painted with shadows. Others whispered that humanity had been gone too long, that they could not be as strong as the legends claimed. The humans heard the doubt, and they answered in their own way. At the edge of the Vayaran system, an entire fleet of warships from 3 alien empires gathered. Hundreds of cruisers, carriers, and fighters filled the void. Their weapons, armed and engines burning, their commanders told themselves they were united, that together they could stand against the myths. From the black horizon, one human ship appeared. It was not the largest of the fleet above Vayara. It was not even the most advanced. Yet when it entered the battlefield, silence spread across the alien channels. The vessel moved with calm precision, its hull scarred yet strong, and on its side burned the name in ancient human letters, HMS Vengeance. The alien commander gave the order. Attack! The void exploded with fire. Hundreds of beams, missiles, and cannons lit up the darkness, all aimed at the lone human ship. The stars themselves seemed to vanish beneath the storm of weapons. No vessel in history could survive such fury, but the human ship did not move. Its shields shimmered, its hull absorbed the fire, and then, without a word, it struck back. A single blast roared from its cannons. The weapon was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Not plasma, not lasers, but something older, deadlier, a kinetic strike that shattered the laws of war. 1. Alien cruiser was torn apart instantly, its fragments scattering like dust across space, then another and another. The alien fleet panicked, ships broke formation, commanders screamed into their comms, but there was no escape. Every shot from the HMS Vengeance found its target, every strike ended another ship. In minutes, dozens of vessels were gone. There, wreckage burning silently in the void. A fighter pilot cried out across the channel, his voice cracking with terror. It's not possible. No ship should have this power. But before he could finish, his fighter vanished in a flash of light. The council chamber watched the feat in silence. Delegates who once mocked the legends now trembled. The humans had given them their proof. At last, the HMS Vengeance ceased. Fire! The battlefield was littered with the dead. Only a handful of alien ships remained, drifting helplessly with engines destroyed. The human voice returned, calm and final. This was only one ship. The words echoed through the galaxy like thunder. If a single vessel could destroy entire fleets in minutes, what would happen when the rest of Earth's warships moved? Every empire, every ruler, every citizen knew the truth in that moment. The humans were not myths. They were conquerors who had chosen to return. And far away, in the deep darkness between galaxies, more signals stirred. Whispers of other fleets, other shadows, answering Earth's call. The choice. The council sat in silence after the battle. The images of shattered fleets still glowed across the screens. Every delegate had watched as a single human warship crushed the pride of 3 empires. No one laughed at the legends now. No one doubted the Deathworlders, but fear alone was not enough. The galaxy needed answers. The human envoy appeared again, his black armor reflecting the light of the chamber. Behind him, projections of Earth's warships filled the air, hundreds of ships darkening the stars. The envoy's voice carried no rage, no mercy, only certainty. You have seen what one ship can do, he said. Now you will make your choice. The chamber trembled. Delegates whispered in panic, some begging for peace, others demanding resistance. But the human voice silenced them. Stand with Earth, and you will survive, he said. Stand against us, and you will burn. The words were simple, final, impossible to twist. The galaxy had been given an ultimatum. On the border worlds, panic spread. Colonies swore loyalty to humans before their neighbors could. Entire empires fractured as rulers, argued over what path to take. Some believed obedience was survival, others believed rebellion was honor. In the hidden chambers of the council, spies whispered a darker fear. Humans had not returned simply to conquer. They had returned with purpose. They had fought something beyond the galaxy, something terrible. And now they were preparing the stars for that war. If true, then the ultimatum was not only about loyalty, it was about survival of the galaxy itself. Chancellor Arvin rose from his seat, his voice shaking. If we choose you, What do we gain? He demanded. What future do you offer us, human? The envoy's helmet tilted. For a moment, silence pressed down like a storm. Then the answer came. If you stand with Earth, you will stand against the end itself. The chamber fell still. The word struck colder than any weapon. What end did he mean? What horrors had humans faced in the dark beyond? Before anyone could ask, the projection vanished, leaving the chamber in silence once more. Outside, Earth's warships drifted like watchful predators, waiting for the galaxy's answer, and across every world, from the smallest colony to the grandest empire, the question echoed, do we kneel, or do we burn? The return of the Deathworlders. The galaxy waited in silence. Every world, every empire, every colony held its breath. Would they kneel, or would they burn? The ultimatum of humanity spread like fire, impossible to escape. Above the council world, the sky darkened. The humans had promised a choice. Now they revealed what that choice truly meant. From the blackness of space, more warships arrived, not a dozen, not 100, but thousands. The fleet stretched from horizon to horizon, so vast it swallowed the stars themselves. Carriers the size of cities, dreadnoughts that glowed with ancient scars, ships older than most empires but armed with weapons the galaxy could not comprehend. The council chamber trembled as the sight filled their screens. Delegates clutched their chests in terror, some whispering prayers, others whispering surrender. One voice broke the silence, a terrified alien who cried out, "This is not a fleet, it is an extinction." The human envoy returned, his figure tall and unyielding. Behind him the fleet stretched across the void, endless and unstoppable. His voice carried through every channel, every world, every heart. "We are the Deathworlders," he declared. "We are not myths, not shadows, not forgotten stories. We are the truth you buried, and the truth has returned." The chamber fell to silence. Some delegates sank to their knees, too broken to resist. Others still clenched their fists in quiet rebellion. But all of them knew, deep inside, that resistance was hopeless. The envoy lifted his hand. Above the council world, the warships shifted as one, their weapons glowing with a light that burned brighter than the stars. The sight alone was enough to shatter courage. One command and the galaxy could be turned to ash. But then his voice changed, softer, heavier. "We did not return to destroy," he said. "We returned because something worse is coming." The words froze the chamber. Something worse. Worse than fleets that blotted out suns. Worse than weapons that tore armadas apart. What could possibly terrify the Deathworlders themselves? The envoy's final words echoed like thunder. Stand with Earth or face the darkness alone. And above the council world the skies turned black, not from night but from the endless shadow of warships. The galaxy finally understood why the old stories had never called humans conquerors. They had called them survivors. And survivors did not return without reason. The Deathworlders were back, and the galaxy's age of myths was over.